there's a very good likelihood, Mackenzie, that you will spend the rest of your life in prison. That won't be up to me. That will be up to the parole board, and that will be up to you to a great extent.
Ohio teenager Mackenzie Shirilla sobbed as she was found guilty of murdering her boyfriend and his friend by driving them into the side of a building at 100 miles per hour in what a judge called a mission of death that was intended to be payback for their turbulent romance. Shirilla, now age 19, miraculously survived the July 2022 crash that claimed the lives of her boyfriend, Dominic Russo, age 20, and his 19-year-old friend, Davian Flanagan. All three had smoked marijuana before Mackenzie, then age 17, got behind the wheel of her Toyota Camry. At 5:30 a.m., she drove at a high speed into a corner of the Plidco building in Strongsville.
And I'm going to cry because I missed Dom so much.
But as the evidence and the courtroom drama unfolds, questions arise. Is there more to this story than meets the eye? Was it truly an accident? And what drove this teenager into a fit of rage when she turned into hell on wheels? Welcome, armchair detectives. We are back at True Detective Network. Today's story is about the infamous teenage murderer who killed her boyfriend and his friend in a moment of absolute anger. It's a story filled with tragedy, heartbreak, and a devastating loss of young lives. It's a case that has sparked intense debate and controversy. This is the story of Mackenzie Shirilla. Born on September 24, 2001, Dominic Russo was a 20-year-old resident of Strongsville, Ohio. He was romantically involved with Mackenzie Shirilla, a 19-year-old girl from Strongsville, Ohio. She was an ordinary girl from the area. The relationship between Mackenzie and Dominic was often quoted as toxic, according to Dominic's friends. So toxic and psychotic that the 17-year-old Shirilla had threatened to cause a crash while they were driving during a heated argument with Russo. But this was just verbal. The fight dissolved, and eventually, Russo got out of the vehicle and was picked up by a friend. But in the early morning hours of 31 July 2022, the community of Strongsville, Ohio experienced a terrible event when they learned that a teenage girl, Mackenzie Shirilla, had driven into a brick wall with her boyfriend and his friend in the car, which killed them both. Shirilla carried out her threats, pushing the accelerator at 100 miles per hour until her 2018 Toyota Camry became completely totaled. But was this act by Mackenzie purposeful or part of a beautifully orchestrated web of lies that pushed and manipulated her into taking such an action? After all, in crime stories, the only constant is to never believe what seems obvious. A passerby spotted the vehicle 45 minutes later and called for help. Dominic was pronounced dead at the scene of a fatal car crash. The tragedy also claimed the life of 19-year-old Davian Flanagan, who was a friend of Dominic. The two young men were pronounced dead on the scene, and Mackenzie was unconscious and not breathing, but was trapped in the driver's seat with a fuzzy Prada slipper stuck to the accelerator. She was taken to the hospital where she underwent multiple surgeries, and somehow, Mackenzie miraculously survived the horrible crash. The late victim, Dominic Russo, is survived by his parents, Christine Agnello and Frank Russo. He is also survived by his older siblings, Angelo, Christopher, Christine, Nicole, Michael, and Frank. The deaths have crushed Christine, who said her brother was very goal-oriented and had many plans for the future. He had just opened up a couple of companies, including a clothing line. He literally was just starting his life, and he was just a baby, she says. So he had his whole life ahead of him. He was the most doting and proud uncle to our children, she says. He was so loved, and he is so indescribably missed. I'm so proud to call him my brother. Also caught in this senseless mayhem was Dominic's friend, Davian Flanagan. The 19-year-old was tragically killed along with his friend in the car crash. Described as a talented athlete, Davian Flanagan played football at Strongsville High School, where he was the starting running back. He also worked as a youth swim coach, though he never let popularity get to his head. He was friends with everyone at school, his father Scott Flanagan says. There wasn't a clique that he belonged to. He just gave everyone as much love as he could and really just let them be heard and let them feel like they were noticed. Scott thinks back to when his son befriended a classmate who had trouble with socialization. After graduation, every time their son called Davian to talk to him, our son picked up. He never let it go to voicemail. He never texted him back and said, "Too busy." He always made time for this young man to feel included and wanted and appreciated, Scott tells reporters. And that's absolutely the heart of Davian. Davian soon delved into his artistic side and found a passion for styling and chopping his own hair, which he then began to do for his teammates and coach. But after suffering injuries that stopped him from continuing to play football, Davian's dream changed. He was working full-time after finishing high school to save money and was in the process of applying to All-State Hairstyling and Barber College in Cleveland with the goal of attending the fall 2023 barber program. But both Russo's and Flanagan's dreams were brutally cut short on that fateful day when Mackenzie drove the car at 100 miles per hour into a brick building, killing Dominic and Davian. The incident shocked the city. These were the details that laid in front of the authorities for them to decipher the case. Before the deaths happened, the trio allegedly smoked marijuana, and Mackenzie allegedly had enough THC, the primary psychoactive compound in the drug, still in her system that put her over the legal limit in Ohio. Detectives testified that hallucinogenic mushrooms and a scale were found near Shirilla's body at the scene. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, a substance abuse can affect the brain development and growth of youth. It can also lead to risky behaviors like driving under the influence and contribute to a series of serious health problems, both mental and physical. Drug abuse in adolescence can also heighten one's risk for overdose or lead to long-term problems with drug use. Of course, different drugs will have different effects on users. Some drugs, for example, are opioids, which pose a risk for respiratory depression. Meanwhile, stimulant drugs like cocaine can cause heart attacks and strokes. Marijuana, on the other hand, poses a risk for learning and memory deficits. These are just some examples of the risks and longer-term effects of drugs generally. But who exactly gave Mackenzie the drugs, and was she forcefully coerced to abuse them? The answer lies in her social media. What made the event even more distressing is that at an unknown point, Mackenzie had posted a video to her TikTok account where she boasted about doing drugs, claiming that she was immortal. "I'm just one of those girls that can do a lot of drugs and not die," says Shirilla in the video. It's unclear if this was filmed before or after the crash. Shirilla's TikTok account has now been set to private, so the scene was set. The TikTok video against Shirilla was far more than ample to prove that she had caused the crash with intent to kill. This would set the scene for a high-voltage trial that would last for 4 days. Before we move on, are you ready to decode cryptic clues and uncover hidden truths? Become part of the Armchair Detective Squad. Subscribe now and set off on your journey of sleuthing. During Shirilla's trial, prosecutors presented evidence that painted a picture of a toxic and volatile relationship between Shirilla and Russo. They argued that Shirilla intentionally caused the crash to end Russo's life because their relationship was ending. Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley said, "The intent was obvious upon seeing that video that there was only one goal, and the computer demonstrated that there was no attempt to slow down or stop, that it was full speed into a building, and tragically, it cost 2 people their lives. There is no doubt that this happened because of the relationship with Dominic, and the defendant's intent was clearly to end that, and she took everybody that was in the car with her. In the trial, prosecutors highlighted 2 incidents that they claimed displayed Shirilla's threatening and violent behavior. On July 17, 2022, just 2 weeks before the fatal crash, Shirilla was driving on Interstate 71 with Russo as a passenger when she threatened to crash the car, apparently upset over a disagreement they had, according to a prosecutor filing. Russo called his mother by phone and asked to be picked up during the disagreement. One of his friends ended up going to get him. That friend was on the phone with Russo when he heard Shirilla say, "I will crash this car right now." When that friend pulled up to pick up Russo, he found Shirilla's car pulled over on the side of the road with the passenger door open. The friend saw her striking Dominic with both of her hands. Dominic then exited the vehicle and left, the filing said. During another conflict in July 2022, Russo recorded Shirilla threatening him. Videos from Russo's cell phone revealed that the two got into an altercation, and Shirilla was heard repeatedly degrading Dominic, threatening him and damaging his property, the court filing said. Dominic wasn't comfortable letting her inside his home and was heard trying to calm Shirilla down, but to no avail. Shirilla instead was heard banging on the house door, demanding to be let inside and calling him degrading and highly inappropriate names. She threatened to key his car, threatened to break off the door handle, verbally counted down multiple times to force him to let her in, and stated, "You're going to come and open this door right now, or there's going to be a serious effing problem." He ultimately stopped recording and called his mother for help. But this was Russo's part of the story. For its part, Shirilla's defense argued the situation wasn't one-sided and that she and Russo mutually fought with each other. Her attorneys also argued that whether she crashed the car intentionally could not be determined. Additionally, it was revealed that Shirilla had asked police if they could suspend her license for 10 years immediately after the crash, showcasing a lack of remorse. Her mother, Natalie Shirilla, testified that Mackenzie was diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. This disorder can cause a person to pass out if their sodium and hydration levels are too low. Addressing the family, she said, "I'm broken, sad, and lost, and my heart hurts for everyone." Davian was her new friend, and Dom was the love of her life, and he was part of our family. The 19-year-old could be seen crying in the background as her mother spoke. To Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court Judge Nancy Margaret Russo, the mother said, "This was a terrible, tragic nightmare accident," adding that her daughter has no memory of the accident. She will never emotionally or physically recover from it. "She almost died too," Ms. Shirilla said as she asked the judge for non-consecutive sentences. She attempted to convince the judge that this was the cause of the crash but was unsuccessful. Mackenzie Shirilla appeared to have left the strange message on Russo's online obituary. "I miss you, Nug. I feel like you're just going to walk in the door any second. I miss your laugh and your perfect smile. I feel your energy around me every day. I just wish it was physical." A post written on August 24, 2022 under her name said, "God, you are the last person to deserve this. You had such a perfect life ahead of you. I wish I told you all this more. Please wait for me," it added. On August 8, 2022, the day of his burial, she posted, "I love you, my Nug. I will never stop thinking about you." But the truth was that Shirilla survived and spent weeks recovering at a hospital, but her passengers were immediately killed upon impact. But was Mackenzie truly remorseful, or was this act just crocodile tears to jump out of a lengthy sentence? This is where disturbing detail emerged in the case. During the trial, Russo's attorney shed light on Shirilla's behavior following the crash. Despite being hospitalized for weeks, she and her mother were reportedly seeking employment with a Los Angeles-based modeling agency during that time. Social media posts showed Shirilla celebrating Halloween and attending a concert in the months following the crash, further calling into question her remorse and grieving process. Months before her trial, but a scant 12 weeks after she killed Russo and Flanagan, Shirilla reportedly booked a hotel room with her girlfriends and dressed up as a dead person, complete with dark eyeshadow and red-painted lips in a revealing all-black outfit. She thought she was going to get away with it, Flanagan's mother, Jamie Flanagan, told the outlet. They're in a hotel room having fun. There was just no remorse, she said in a response to the shocking images. We remember thinking, what are we dealing with here? Prosecutors argued that these actions demonstrated a shocking lack of remorse and a disregard for the lives lost. Among the evidence entered in court, they presented images of Shirilla attending a concert in a wheelchair and accused her of trying to secure modeling gigs shortly after the deliberate killings. She was then charged with murder, a claim she denied. At trial, her attorneys attempted to argue that she had lost control of the car and that it was an accident. Prosecutors used surveillance footage of her driving completely in control before the crash to disprove their argument. Shirilla's defense attorney, James McDonnell, argued during the trial that the crash was a result of reckless homicide and not premeditated murder. He claimed that no one knows what truly happened inside the car that led to the crash. McDonnell stated that Shirilla had expressed genuine remorse since he first met her, and that feeling bad after a fatal crash does not automatically make someone a murderer. The defense pointed out that Shirilla had experienced grief, guilt, and shame about the crash, as noted by medical professionals. They argued that the prosecution failed to prove that Shirilla had deliberately caused the crash with the intent to kill Russo and Flanagan. Others who testified were a crime scene detective, an analyst with Regional Crash Team Southwest Accident Group, one of Davian Flanagan's friends who was messaging with Flanagan in the hours before the crash, and the host of a graduation party who saw Shirilla, Russo, and Flanagan at her party the night before the fatal incident. However, the judge and the jury ultimately sided with the prosecution, finding Shirilla guilty of multiple charges, including murder, aggravated vehicular homicide, and drug possession. In her bench trial, Judge Nancy Margaret Russo, who is not related to Dominic Russo, delivered a scathing indictment of Shirilla's actions. The judge found that the crash was pre-planned and deliberate, meant to end her toxic relationship with Dominic Russo. She referred to Shirilla as hell on wheels. Judge Russo chose not to sentence Shirilla to back-to-back life sentences, which would have meant she would not be eligible for parole for 30 years. Instead, she will serve her sentences concurrently. Mackenzie alone chose a time to make the drive early in the morning when any reasonable person would expect a few people would be nearby to witness it or offer life-saving assistance. This was not reckless driving. This was murder. She had a mission, and she executed it with precision. The decision was death, Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court Judge Nancy Margaret Russo said. There's only one person responsible for all the pain in this room, and that person is you, Mackenzie, Judge Russo told the defendant.
There's a very good likelihood, Mackenzie, that you will spend the rest of your life in prison. That won't be up to me. That will be up to the parole board, and that will be up to you to a great extent.
That will be up to the Ohio Board of Parole, and that will be up to you. Shirilla delivered a brief statement moments before learning her fate. I'm so deeply sorry. I hope one day you can see I wouldn't do this on purpose, she said, continuing to deny the crash was intentional. We were all friends, and Dom was my soulmate. An incredulous Mackenzie was visibly shocked as she was put in handcuffs and led away. Her family looked equally stunned. Shirilla was found guilty of 4 counts of felonious assault, 2 of aggravated vehicular homicide, 1 of drug possession, and 1 of possessing criminal tools, in addition to 4 counts of murder. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The devastating loss of Dominic Russo and Davian Flanagan left their families shattered and forever changed. During the sentencing hearing, the victims' families had the opportunity to share their impact statements, expressing the profound grief and pain caused by Shirilla's actions.
This was not a car accident. The evidence and science proved that Mackenzie Shirilla murdered my son, Dominic, as well as Davian. There's no fix put in this case.
Christine Russo, Dominic's mother, conveyed the lasting pain and emptiness she feels, stating that she had lost 3 children in the crash.
I wish I could change this every day. I lost 3 children in that crash. Not a minute goes by each day that I don't think about my son, as well as Davian. My heart is forever broken.
She urged Shirilla to be grateful for still having a future, unlike Dominic and Davian. Jamie Flanagan, Davian's mother, spoke passionately about her son's dreams and aspirations.
My son Davian is and always will be so much more than cargo. He was precious. He was an amazing soul with a heart of gold.
Davian had plans to attend barber school and open his barber shop. She described him as an amazing soul with a heart of gold who gave as much as he received. Davian's little sister Davin expressed her anger and sadness, highlighting the unfairness of Shirilla potentially being paroled while her brother's life was taken away forever.
After Davian passed away, a lot of trauma and past pain has came into my life, causing it to be difficult to heal from this trauma event, or this traumatic event. Davian was not just a big brother to me, but a role model in many ways.
Shirilla and Russo had been dating for 3 or 4 years, Russo's family members told reporters. She had spent the majority of the relationship living with Russo at his home. Dominic Russo's mother testified in court that he and Shirilla fought and threats were made, and his brother Angelo testified that the couple broke up often. I witnessed a lot of negative behavior from her to my brother, and that was just kind of pushed away as a big brother figure because she just wasn't fair to him, Angela Russo said. Christine Russo, Dominic's older sister, aged 34, told reporters she didn't see the fights in the couple's relationship, but heard some details from Dominic's friends. From what I heard from his buddies and people very close in their age, not that they saw the crash coming, but it wasn't a surprise to a lot of people based on her behavior and how she was, she said. You would never think in a million years nobody would ever have thought that this would happen, she continued. I think everybody says that when someone's in a domestic violence situation, or if they have an abusive partner, you just don't see that from the outside. It happens behind closed doors. Flanagan's father wrote on Facebook that his son Davian was just an innocent passenger looking for a ride home. The impact statements from the victims' families painted a vivid picture of the profound loss they experienced. Their words served as a reminder of the dreams and potential that were cut short by Shirilla's deliberate actions. The case of Mackenzie Shirilla has garnered significant attention due to the tragic nature of the crash and the subsequent legal proceedings. It serves as a reminder of the devastating consequences that can arise from toxic relationships and impulsive actions. The families of Dominic Russo and Davian Flanagan will forever carry the burden of their loss, while Shirilla will spend a significant portion of her life behind bars. This case also raises important questions about accountability and the criminal justice system. The sentencing of Shirilla to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years is a reflection of the severity of her actions. However, it also prompts discussions about rehabilitation, second chances, and the potential for personal growth and change. Ultimately, the story of Mackenzie Shirilla is a tragic one that highlights the profound impact of our choices and actions. It serves as a reminder to cherish our loved ones and to prioritize healthy and respectful relationships. The lives lost in this senseless act of violence should never be forgotten, and their memory should serve as a reminder to strive for a society free from violence and tragedy. Thank you, Armchair Detectives, for joining us on this journey into the Mackenzie Shirilla case. Your dedication is invaluable. Stay tuned to True Detective Network for more mysteries every week. Remember to subscribe for weekly true crime updates. Keep sleuthing, Armchair Detectives, and let's continue seeking justice together.